Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is day 2 of Vlogmas, and again, not a vlog today, but I wanted to check in and recap my 2023 goals because the year is pretty much over and I think I've accomplished quite a lot this year. If you haven't checked it out and you want to do that beforehand, I will leave my 2023 goals video up above. That includes my reading, writing, and my personal life. And today we are going to check in to see how well I did. So with that said, I'm actually going to start with YouTube because I only had 3 goals for YouTube and I wrote all my goals out so I can check in throughout the year, and I'm kind of happy I did this because it was a nice reminder every so often to be like, am I getting there? Did I do this how I wanted to? So with YouTube, I had 3 goals, and technically one of them ties into the reading, which is why I'm starting with YouTube. So I really only had 2 goals fully for YouTube. The first was to live stream once a month. I initially, at the beginning of the year, thought I would be able to maintain this, especially because with my last job, which I had the majority of this year, I had a lot of downtime and I got done at 3:30. So I kind of assumed that I would be able to have live streams after work or on the weekends. I did well with this up until about August, which is when things hit me really hard. I started having extreme back pain. My mother-in-law had some health issues. My husband had some health issues. We were just all having health issues. I was doing really well, and sometimes I was doing 2 live streams a month. I had the new series I started, which was Review, Revise, Submit, and I started that pretty well. I believe I have 3, and I will link them up above if you're interested. I also did live streams for writing, and I jumped into other people's live streams. So even though I really wanted to have a live stream on my channel once a month, I still live streamed with other people. And I think I really only missed 1 or 2 months, and I think those months were August and September, but I could be wrong and I could have jumped in somebody else's stream at that time. Otherwise, I live streamed almost every single month. I'm going to count that as a win because it was a rough year. The second goal I had, which is going to have the similar issues that I just stated, was I wanted to post 2 videos a month. I figured at the very least I could get 1 vlog and my wrap-up video just to keep everybody updated. And again, I pretty much succeeded in this up until the point where my health started to get wacky. I had all intentions to keep this going, but sometimes you just have to understand when you need to take a step back and take care of yourself, and that is something I tried to do, and I feel like I succeeded overall again, given that there were some curveballs that I could not predict or control. So the last one, which is again tying into the reading, because I wasn't sure initially when me and Autumn started our book club this year for reading all of Tolkien's work, I wasn't sure if we were going to live stream it or just keep it in a Discord. So I wanted to maintain Autumn and I's Discord group for Tolkien, which was the Autumn Bree's book club. And this ties more directly into the reading because we decided to keep it strictly on Discord. And with that said, I wanted to maintain my book clubs this year. I run 3. I co-host with Autumn for our Tolkien reading. I co-host an in-person book club at a local business, which we host once a month. And I also had another Discord with more of a smaller group of friends that we know and had good discussions with that ended up pausing midway through the year. By the time the summer rolled around, a lot of us were busy. People were working more hours if they worked at places that involved outdoors, and just life in general got busier when the weather's warmer. So we paused it, and then since then we have not picked that back up. So that's the only one I would say hasn't been maintained, but everybody was in agreement to pause it when it paused and nobody wanted to jump back into it. So I don't, again, think that's a fail, but I understand too that it could look like that because we paused and then nobody put the effort to come back in. But Autumn and I's book club and the in-person book club have been maintained. I've been always a pretty adamant attendee as well as a host. So I think that was a win. And for the rest of my reading goals, I nailed it this year. As the time I'm filming this, I have read 61 books out of my 52 that I wanted to read. I wanted to read 52 for, every 1 week in the year, and I smashed that goal. I'm at 61 and I have 10 more books planned to read. I may be crazy given that the end of the year is approaching, but I may be able to get quite a few out of that. I might not get all 10, but I might squeak through and get a good portion. So I'm just feeling good. In addition, I wanted to read Brandon Sanderson to start his books because I keep putting that off, and I wanted to read more horror, and I did both. I read 2 Brandon Sanderson books this year, which were part of his Year of Sanderson. I read Tress of the Emerald Isle, as well as The Frugal Wizard's Guide to Surviving Medieval England. And both are pretty good. I like Tress more than Medieval England, but overall, I think they were great starter books to get into his world, and I'm looking forward to reading more next year. And similarly with horror, I don't have to go into every single horror book, but I did make that a big part of my reading year, and especially in October. By the time I hit October, I just wanted to consume all the scary books, and I read about 5, I think, in that month, so I think that's good as well. So for my professional goals, which is my job as a counselor, therapist, whatever you want to count it, I had 3 goals that were all intermingled. So because I went back to school and I was trying to apply for my licensure, in the state of Pennsylvania, I wanted to have that piece of paper that said, I am a licensed professional counselor, which means I could pretty much do therapy wherever as long as I have liability insurance and I'm doing what I need to do. So there was a 3-part process to getting my license. One was I had to study because I needed to take a test. So I needed to study, and I was going to try to study for 2 hours a week at a minimum starting in January. And then I needed to take and pass my National Counselor exam, my NCE. And I did both. I might not have studied 2 hours every week as I thought I did, but I still did enough studying that I passed my test. And then that meant in June, I was finally able to apply for my license. And at the end of July, I got my license, which meant I had an additional experience getting my license because somebody reached out and offered me to come in for an interview, and I ended up getting a new job very quickly after I got my license. It was not planned that way, and it kind of gave me a few bumps in the roads before I got settled into my new job. But overall, I very much succeeded and am now having a much more comfortable paycheck than I was as a pre-licensed therapist, because the disparity between pre-license and license in wages is abhorrent, especially because you have to work before you get your license. You have to work 2 years minimum before you can apply for your license. I was already in the field, so I had 6 years actually under my belt, but it was still a crazy gap in wages. So I'm very thankful that I got that opportunity quickly and I feel settled into my new job. So those were just the professional goals I had, and we smashed that by the halfway point of the year, and I'm very grateful that that happened. I actually also had life goals, which I just realized I didn't talk about. I did not do great with my life goals. That was the one area that ended up falling very short. For starters, we do want to move. As much as I love this house, I don't really want to stay in the neighborhood. I don't want to be around people, and we really would love land if we can get there one day. So the goal was to start saving for a new house for a down payment. And because of life, because of health issues, because of my job at the time for the majority of the year, I just did not have the chance or the ability to really save anything. So I didn't have that. I also really wanted to save for Ireland, to go to Ireland in 2025 for my 10-year anniversary, and I had to use all the money I saved for my health crises, which is sad, but it's also life. So I did not get to save anything for Ireland. I actually completely used all the money I did have saved. So it kind of hurt me a little bit to do that, but I wouldn't have been able to pay for my medical bills had I not done it. So life happens, and that's what it is. I also wanted to exercise 3 times a week and get back into doing something, whether that was walking once, yoga once, and maybe a weightlifting workout, but didn't happen. Again, health issues could not allow me to get into that, and at some point I couldn't move at all, so I could not exercise, and I have yet to really do much. I'm slowly getting into yoga again, and I'm going to try to start taking classes once a week, but I've been afraid to do a lot because I don't want to hurt my back again, and I just finished physical therapy. So again, a relatively solid reason for why that didn't happen. But the last goal on my life list was to repaint my library. And if you've been around, I'll share the link up above for my video that happened extremely fast in the year. I had anticipated that to be a like June, July occurrence, and it happened in January because the library, which was downstairs initially, flooded for the 4th time, and it was really bad that time. We had to tear out the wall to fix the piping, and it was just really bad. So because we were already having to repair the wall and repaint half of it, I decided I was going to take the opportunity. Even though we weren't keeping all of my books down there anymore, I still wanted to paint it and make it a nicer room because it's a 1-window room and it was very dark because it was this green and blue color that was not doing the walls any justice. So I did paint the rest of the walls blue, and then the wall on the top half was white. And it looks great, and I'm very happy that I did it, even though I don't spend most of my time down there at all anymore. But those are my life goals. So really, we did great with the reading, YouTube, and professional goals, I think. Life hit me upside the head, which is why I tend to not make life goals, because you never know what is going to happen in life. But I had started the year with, you know, a shimmer in my eye and hope in my heart, and you know, it's okay. So now that the moment you've all been waiting for, it is time to talk about my writing goals. So this year, I decided to do things a little bit differently because I had to be realistic about where I was going to be at. And I basically made a 3-tier goal list where my first level was things that I think I could do and manage in the year. My second level was stretch goals, you know, a little bit like maybe I'll get my feet wet or start something. Maybe I can accomplish them if I finish the rest of my goals first. And then my level 3 was going to be the far-reaching goals, like the real stretch ones, where I don't think I'm going to get there, but if I do, that's great. And pretty much, I was on the money for once with these goals. I did really well with my level 1, and I didn't meet anything in level 2 or 3. Level 3 came close, surprisingly enough, but we'll talk about that. So in level 1, the first thing I wanted to do was write 3 hours a week. I wanted to do this to try to get into a habit of just writing more. And truthfully, I started off the year tracking this and I did relatively well. And then I just let it go by the wayside because I found that I was just writing a lot. And I didn't measure this. I didn't make a graph. I didn't keep track of it. But I will say, just from how I have met the rest of my goals in level 1, I succeeded in this. I wrote enough every week that I got into good habits and good patterns, and I was able to do lots of submissions. With that said, my next goal was submitting 5 to 10 short stories and poems, and I did that. I believe I submitted 9 or 10 poems total. So far, at the point that I'm filming this, because I won't know the rest of mine until 2024, but all of the ones that I've gotten back from have been rejected. I had some videos talking about those, and the last rejection I got for my poetry was very encouraging. I also believe I've submitted 5 or 6 short stories, 2 of which were accepted. The rest were rejected. But again, I wrote so much and I have so much content now to share at some point that whether they're accepted or rejected, I did the thing. I did what I said, and I submitted quite a lot of short stories and poems. Then, in the beginning of the year, so this was the only goal that I didn't meet, but it wasn't my fault. So at the beginning of the year, I really wanted to enter author mentor match for Prophecy Project because it wasn't getting anywhere in the query process, and I thought I may have something here, but I may need help trying to figure out how to piece it together. This was one of those books that I didn't have an outline going into it, and I tried to rework it in my 2nd and 3rd and 4th drafts, but I don't think I quite got there. The problem with this was Author Mentor Match went silent, as did almost every pitch contest. I was like researching them, I couldn't find any, and there was one mentor program that I was going to swap, but I didn't. At the point that I was going to submit to it, I decided that it wasn't worth it. And ultimately, what I was going to do is if I didn't get accepted into Author Mentor Match, I was going to shelf Prophecy Project. And that is what I ultimately decided. AMM was not around, I shelved Prophecy. And we have not looked at it for the rest of the year. And I think that's for the best right now. The next thing I wanted to do, which I I ended up tweaking this goal because of life circumstances, but I wanted to edit Project Mermaid, but really it should have been finished Project Mermaid from the beginning because I didn't finish it by the end of 2023. So I did finish writing Project Mermaid and I finished in August of 2023. I did not get to edit it because I understand that I need to really flesh out the world more and make sure I understand it before I edit it with things that I may not fully sure. So I want to flesh out the world more, I want to flesh out the nations more, and I want to flesh out the religion more. And those three things are going to make the story stronger. If I was just going to edit it the way it is now, it would not have that depth and I would easily need 2 or 3 more drafts because of not doing that work. So I paused Project Mermaid so that I can focus more on fleshing out that world in 2024. And then lastly, I wanted to write my vampire project, which is what I'm currently working on. And I did not finish that for NaNoWriMo, as you may recall in my wrap-up video, but I am happy that I'm writing it. So whether you want to interpret write as complete or write as just start and write it, I'm going to call that as a win because I did. I said I wanted to start writing it and work on it, and I did in this year. It might not be fully finished, but it is started and it is going strong. So for level 2 and level 3, like I said, I didn't really get to do them. So for level 2, I wanted to edit my rom-com, which was co-written with my friend Caitlin. We didn't edit it. We finished it, but we didn't edit it. I also wanted to edit a short story that I wanted to turn into a novella, which was a sci-fi short story, and that was called Project Micah, where it's kind of dystopian sci-fi. It is in a futuristic Earth that is at this point dead, and people are finding this weird tree technology that is not human and disappearing in it, but only one person disappears a year. And I liked the concept, of course, because I wrote it, but I didn't get to edit it. That is something that I still would like to go back to, but I just wasn't in the mindset to revisit the sci-fi this year. I also wanted to plot a new book potentially, which was my Project Dreamland, which is a psychological horror with fantasy elements. Think like Nightmare on Elm Street / like dream world weirdness. And I didn't do that, which I'm kind of okay with. I initially wanted to put this on my goal list because I was really thinking about this a lot in the beginning of the year, but truthfully, I haven't thought about it since like July, and that's fine with me. And then last, similarly with my friend Caitlin, we wrote half of another fantasy novel together, which we're calling Project Demetria to keep it simple. It was taken from our original massive book we wrote, and I wanted to continue and finish that book. We didn't touch that at all this year. We barely wrote together this year, so it wasn't going to happen. We did plot another one, like another plot that was from the original massive novel. We plotted that out a little bit more, but we didn't write anything else. And then we're back into my level 3, which was only 3 goals. And the first one was to continue writing Project Metal, which is a co-written book that is inspired by German fairy tales with Veronica King. And we started that at the beginning of the year and then didn't continue it because Veronica King is debuting, and she debuted on December 5th of this year with her Down the Well novel. And that took priority because she needed to make sure her edits were done and the rest of her contractual obligations were done. So Project Metal did not continue, and that was okay. Again, it was a super stretch goal. It wasn't anything that I thought would happen this year. I also debated starting a new query, which is why it was a level 3, because while I wanted to be determined, I did not think all the life stuff was going to happen, and that really set things push back. So I'm happy that I had the foresight to say this is a level 3 goal, because I think I would have been upset if I didn't get there and I put it at level 1. But I think that the work that I'm doing for this year, all the work that I did, is going to make a huge difference next year when I talk about my goals for 2024. And lastly, my last stretch goal was to host a writing retreat. I had no parameters for this. I didn't know if I wanted to do this like low-key with my AuthorTube friends, if I wanted to do this low-key with a few local writing friends, or if I wanted to try to aim big and like host something larger. And with my friend who owns a local business, she was trying to get more retreat ideas, and we were going to host a joint artist retreat where I would talk about writing, somebody else would talk about like paint art drawing kind of stuff, and somebody else would talk about like the meditative qualities of art. And we had it planned relatively well. We had place booked, we had the schedule starting to come together, and unfortunately just no one booked it, which was in part, I think, because we didn't get to promote it as much as I think we thought we were. Also, the algorithms online just weren't shoving that in people's faces, so nobody knew about it. And I think we only had 2 people book it, and it just wasn't enough to sustain it. We would have lost a lot of money trying to do it that way. Not so much me, but for the business side of things, that was not a risk they could take. So we ended up canceling it, and I didn't have any sort of writing retreat. But we are going to try to do that in the future again, and maybe with more planning, it will come together. So that almost happened, but I do think that's going to be another stretch goal for me next year. Again, whether that is meeting other author tubers and doing that together or doing it with this joint business, I would love something to happen. So those are all the goals I had in 2023. What do you think? I feel personally that they were relatively successful. As I said, my reading, YouTube, and professional goals were all met. My writing goals weren't fully met, but I had a lot of things come up that changed the outlook of how I was writing and how frequently I was able to do the work. And despite that, I still felt like I succeeded in starting a new novel, finishing another novel, and submitting tons of works of short fiction and poetry, including 2 that got published. So I feel like, other than my life goals, which this is why I don't include life goals, but other than my life goals, I feel like I did a very good job with my goals and I had a very solid year. How did your goals go for you? Did you do a video of this nature where you talked about them? Let me know. Otherwise, feel free to let me know what you think of my goals. If you think that I earned the pride that I have experienced by meeting most of these goals, or in my opinion, meeting these goals, or do you feel like I'm stretching it a little bit and I don't earn as much credit? Let me know down below. And I will see you tomorrow for another Vlogmas video. Bye.